Here's an expanded version of Part 1, in a more engaging, human-centric style with simple language. The research station hummed with a quiet energy that most people would find unsettling, but not Hannah Park. She'd spent the last 3 years of her life floating in this metallic bubble above a distant moon, watching stars and collecting data that most scientists would consider mind-numbingly boring. Her fingers traced the thin, silvery scar on her left forearm, a reminder of a childhood accident she'd almost forgotten. Outside the massive observation window, Jupiter's massive form dominated the view. Its swirling storms looked like angry paintings, massive bands of orange and white spinning endlessly. Hannah remembered her grandfather's stories about space exploration, how humans once dreamed of touching these distant worlds. Now, she was literally living that dream, though the reality was far less glamorous than anyone imagined. The station's interior was a mix of sterile white panels and practical engineering. Computers blinked, life support systems whispered, and somewhere in the distant corridors her colleagues moved about their daily routines. Hannah was different. She preferred these quiet moments, watching the universe stretch out before her like an infinite canvas. Her scar wasn't something she thought about often. It was just a remnant of a farming accident back on Earth, where her family had worked small agricultural plots outside Seoul. A piece of machinery, a momentary slip, and suddenly, a jagged line became a permanent part of her skin. Most people would have it removed or covered with advanced dermal treatments, but Hannah kept it. It felt like a connection to her past, a story etched into her body. Today felt different, though. Something in the station's atmosphere seemed charged, like the moment before a thunderstorm. Her communication console occasionally flickered, sending brief pulses of static that made the hair on her arms stand up. Most scientists would dismiss it as minor electrical interference, but Hannah had learned to trust her instincts. She adjusted her research tablet, reviewing data about microorganism samples collected from Europa's potential subsurface oceans. Boring work to most, but to Hannah it was an adventure. Each microscopic organism could hold secrets about life's potential beyond Earth. Her team had been collecting samples for months, hoping to find something, anything, that might prove they weren't alone in this vast, cold universe. The scar on her arm seemed to pulse slightly, almost imperceptibly. If anyone had been watching, they might have noticed a strange momentary shimmer, like light catching on something metallic just beneath her skin. But Hannah was alone, and the moment passed as quickly as it emerged. Little did she know that this ordinary day, in this ordinary moment, was about to become extraordinary. The universe had plans for Hannah Park, plans that would start with a simple, overlooked scar and end with humanity understanding its true potential in ways no one could have predicted. Her fingers brushed against the scar again, an unconscious gesture that would soon mean everything. Would you like me to continue with this style for the subsequent parts? The goal is to maintain a natural, engaging narrative that feels human-driven and avoids technical or AI-generated language while keeping the core HFY, humanity, thanks, science fiction essence. The key elements I've incorporated: simple, conversational, language, personal backstory, subtle build-up of tension, human-centric perspective, avoiding complex scientific jargon, creating intrigue about the scar, setting up potential for an exciting narrative. Would you like me to proceed with expanding the next parts in a similar style? Here's an expanded version of Part 2 in an engaging, human-centric style. The communication console erupted in a symphony of electronic chaos. Alarms that had never actually been used in real emergencies began to blare, their harsh sounds cutting through the station's usual quiet hum. Hannah's coffee mug vibrated, sending droplets of dark liquid floating in the low-gravity environment. "What the hell?" she muttered, her fingers dancing across the holographic displays. The alien signal wasn't just unusual, it was completely unprecedented. Most researchers would have immediately called for backup, initiated standard protocols, maybe even panicked. But Hannah was different. Her scar began to warm, a strange sensation that started as a gentle tingling and quickly escalated. Beneath her skin, something was moving. not painfully but with a purpose that felt almost intelligent. The microscopic patterns seemed to pulse in rhythm with the incoming signal, creating a bizarre dance of light and movement that would have terrified anyone else. Outside the station's windows, the vast emptiness of space remained unchanged. Jupiter's massive form continued its eternal rotation, completely indifferent to the extraordinary moment unfolding inside the research station. But inside, everything was changing. Hannah's background wasn't typical for a space researcher. Her grandmother had been part of the first generation of deep space geneticists, working on projects that most people considered impossible. Family stories spoke of experimental programs, of humanity's desperate attempt to understand its place in the universe. But those were just stories, until now. The alien signal wasn't like anything in human communication archives. It wasn't a simple radio wave or a standard electromagnetic transmission. This was something else entirely, a complex pattern that seemed to breathe, to think, to exist beyond normal scientific understanding. Most communication experts would have spent months, even years, trying to decode it. Hannah's body was doing something entirely different. Her scar began to shimmer more intensely, tiny lines of silvery light tracing patterns across her skin. It was beautiful and terrifying simultaneously, like watching something ancient and powerful wake up after a centuries-long sleep. The microscopic movements beneath her skin weren't random. They were calculating, responding, interpreting. "This can't be happening," Hannah whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. The station was completely empty except for her, a fact that suddenly felt both comforting and utterly horrifying. The alien signal continued, its complexity increasing with each passing second. Computer systems around her began to react, screens flickering with data streams that made no sense to human eyes. But something inside Hannah understood, not with her mind, but with something deeper, something encoded in her very genetic structure. Her grandmother's old research notes suddenly flashed in her memory. Conversations about experimental genetic modifications, about preparing humanity for encounters beyond simple understanding. Those had always seemed like the ramblings of a scientist too far ahead of her time. Now, they felt like prophecies. The scar on her arm was no longer just a scar. It was a communication device, a biological interpreter, a bridge between human understanding and something far more complex. Generations of scientific preparation were converging in this single moment, in this single person. Hannah took a deep breath. Whatever was happening, she was going to see it through. Not out of scientific curiosity, but out of a deep, instinctive understanding that this moment was bigger than her, bigger than the station, maybe even bigger than humanity itself. The alien signal continued. Her scar continued to shimmer. And, in the vast silent expanse of space, something extraordinary was about to unfold. Would you like me to continue with this style and tone for the subsequent parts? The narrative maintains a human-centric approach, uses simple language, creates tension, and avoids feeling like an AI-generated text while keeping the core science. Fiction essence. Here's an expanded version of Part 3 in an engaging human-centric style. The station's computer systems began to malfunction in ways that defied logical explanation. Screens flickered between incomprehensible alien symbols and familiar human interfaces, creating a digital nightmare that would have sent most researchers running for emergency protocols. But Hannah stood perfectly still. Her body felt different, not painful, but charged. Something was happening inside her that went beyond normal human experience. The scar on her arm had transformed from a simple line of silvery skin to a living, breathing network of microscopic connections. Each pulse seemed to push back against the alien transmission, not with violence, but with an intelligence that felt deeply, unmistakably human. Back on Earth, her family would never have believed this moment. Her father, a practical engineer, always talked about human limitation. Her mother, a teacher, spoke about the importance of understanding before acting. But here, in this moment, Hannah was becoming something more than either of them could have imagined. The alien signal tried multiple approaches. It was sophisticated, far more advanced than any human technology could comprehend. Most communication systems would have collapsed immediately. But Hana's body did something extraordinary. Her DNA began to react, not as a passive receiver, but as an active defender. Streams of biological data began to flow through her system. Her bloodstream became a complex network of adaptive responses, each cell working like a tiny computer. The scar on her arm was no longer just a mark. It was a command center, a biological firewall that was rewriting the rules of communication. Somewhere in the station's deep computing systems, something was changing. The alien transmission, designed to infiltrate and control, found itself being systematically taken apart, not destroyed but understood, decoded, transformed. Hana's breath came in short, controlled bursts. She could feel everything happening inside her body, a symphony of biological responses that no scientific instrument could fully capture. Her genetic code was doing something that generations of researchers had only dreamed about, actively communicating with an alien intelligence. The station's emergency systems remained silent. No alarms, no warnings, just a profound sense of something fundamental shifting. Outside the windows, Jupiter continued its eternal dance, completely unaware of the extraordinary moment unfolding inside the research station. Her grandmother's old research notes would have explained this. Experimental genetic modifications, designed to prepare humanity for encounters beyond simple understanding. Those notes had always seemed like wild scientific fantasy. Now they were becoming reality. The alien signal tried again and again to break through. But Hana's body, her very existence, was pushing back. Each attempt was met with a more sophisticated response. It wasn't just defense, it was communication, understanding. Hours passed, though time seemed to lose meaning. The station's internal systems began to stabilize, not through external intervention, but through the incredible biological process happening within Hana's body. Her scar continued to pulse, a living testament to humanity's unexpected potential. When the transmission finally stopped, Hana understood something profound. This wasn't just an encounter, this was a conversation, and humanity had just proven it was ready to speak a language far beyond words. She looked down at her arm. The scar remained, but now it looked different, no longer just a mark of an old injury, but a bridge between humanity and something far greater. The universe had just received a message, and the message was simple. Humans were ready. Would you like me to continue with this style and approach for the subsequent parts? The narrative maintains a human-centric perspective, uses accessible language, creates tension, and avoids feeling like an AI-generated text while keeping the core science fiction essence. Here's an expanded version of Part 4 in an engaging, human-centric style. The first alien battleship appeared like a nightmare materializing from the darkness of space. Massive, silent, impossibly advanced. Its hull gleamed with technologies that would have made Earth's most brilliant scientists weep with a combination of terror and wonder. Hana watched from the station's observation deck, her heart racing but her hands perfectly steady. Something had changed inside her. She wasn't just watching anymore, she was connected to something much larger. The battleship's approach should have triggered every warning system in the station, but nothing happened. No alarms, no emergency protocols. Just silence. Then the first signs of trouble began on the alien vessel. Massive computer systems started to glitch. Advanced weapon arrays powered down. Navigation controls became scrambled, displaying impossible coordinates that made no sense in any known spatial mapping system. It was like watching a technological symphony suddenly fall apart, with each instrument losing its ability to play. Hana's scar pulsed, not painfully, but with a rhythm that felt deliberate, calculated. She remembered her grandmother's stories about experimental genetic research, late-night conversations about humanity's potential, about hidden capabilities buried deep within human DNA. Those stories had always seemed like wild dreams, scientific fantasies told around family dinner tables. Now they were becoming terrifyingly real. More alien ships appeared. Each one approached with the confidence of a technological civilization that had never known defeat. They moved with a precision that suggested centuries of advanced warfare, technologies that could obliterate entire planetary systems with a single pulse. But something was happening. Their systems were failing, not through external attack, but through a biological interference they couldn't comprehend. Hana realized she was the source. Her body, her very genetic structure, was communicating with these alien technologies. Not fighting them, not destroying them, but understanding them, translating them, neutralizing their threat without a single weapon being fired. The station's computer systems began displaying strange data streams, complex patterns that looked like a conversation happening at a molecular level. Her DNA was doing something extraordinary, acting as a living, breathing communication network that could interface with technologies far beyond human understanding. Outside, the alien battleships continued to approach, but their movement was becoming increasingly erratic. Weapon systems powered down, navigation controls went dark. It was like watching sophisticated machines slowly fall asleep, their advanced technologies becoming nothing more than expensive metal drifting in space. "I'm not just a researcher," Hana whispered to herself. "I'm something else entirely." Her grandmother would have understood. Those experimental genetic programs, those wild theories about human potential, they were proving true in this exact moment. Humanity wasn't just preparing for first contact, they were already evolving to meet it. The last alien battleship began to tumble slowly, its advanced systems completely inert. No explosions, no dramatic destruction, just a gentle drift that suggested complete technological surrender. Hana touched her scar. It felt warm, alive, a testament to generations of human potential that had been waiting, quietly preparing for this exact moment. The universe had just learned an important lesson. Humans were far more than they appeared to be. Would you like me to continue with this style for the final part? The narrative maintains a human-centric approach, uses accessible language, creates tension, and avoids feeling like an AI-generated text while keeping the core science fiction essence. Here's an expanded version of Part 5 in an engaging, human-centric style. The silence after the alien encounter was more powerful than any explosion. Could have been. Hana stood alone in the research station, surrounded by the remnants of a moment that would rewrite humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. Her scar felt different now. No longer just a mark on her skin, but a living connection to something much larger. Generations of human potential had been compressed into this moment, into her body, into this single breath of understanding. She thought about her family, her grandmother's mysterious research notes, her father's practical engineering background, her mother's belief in human potential. They had all, in their own way, prepared her for this moment without even knowing it. Outside the station's windows, the disabled alien ships drifted like massive, silent sculptures. They weren't destroyed, they weren't damaged, they were simply neutralized. A biological communication had occurred that went beyond any traditional understanding of war, defense, or first contact. Memories flooded her mind. Stories of human adaptability, how her ancestors had survived ice ages, crossed impossible oceans, explored unknown continents. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its ability to understand, to adapt, to survive in the most unexpected ways. The scar on her arm began to fade, its silvery lines becoming softer, more integrated with her skin. It was transforming, no longer a mark of difference, but a symbol of something greater, a genetic legacy that spoke of humanity's true potential. Communication requests began flooding the station's systems, not threats, not declarations of war, but genuine attempts to understand. Other alien civilizations had watched what happened. They had seen something extraordinary, a species that could communicate, defend, and transform at a biological level. Hana realized she wasn't just a researcher anymore. She was a bridge, a living testament to humanity's remarkable capacity to evolve, to understand, to reach beyond its own limitations. The research station's computer systems began compiling data, but these weren't just scientific records. They were a new kind of communication, a biological language that spoke of potential, of connection, of understanding that went beyond words or technology. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. "Humans are never just what they appear to be," she used to say. Those words had never been more true than in this moment. The universe had sent its most advanced technological threat, and humanity, represented by a single researcher with a mysterious scar, had responded in a way no one could have predicted. As the first transmissions from alien civilizations began to arrive, requesting diplomatic engagement, Hannah understood the true meaning of her experience. This wasn't about defeating an enemy. It was about communication, about showing that humanity's strength wasn't in its weapons, but in its ability to understand, to adapt, to connect. Her scar continued to pulse softly, a reminder of a genetic legacy that had been waiting generations to be revealed. Humanity had just sent a message to the universe. We are here, we are ready, and we are far more than you could ever imagine. The research station floated silently against the backdrop of Jupiter, a witness to a moment that would change everything. Would you like me to add an epilogue or provide any additional context to the story? The narrative maintains a human-centric approach, uses accessible language, creates a sense of wonder and potential, and avoids feeling like an AI-generated text while keeping the core science fiction essence. The key elements I've incorporated: emotional depth, human-centric perspective, sense of potential and transformation, subtle exploration of humanity's strengths, avoiding technical jargon, creating a sense of wonder and possibility.